Charles, do you want to go into industry after just getting your new faculty job?
I think I'll stay in academia for a while.
You'll stay in academia. Okay, sounds good. All right, and Nikiru wants to do an industry career. Awesome. I'm glad we have different perspectives represented here. Cool. Well, these slides will be more geared towards industry careers, but I promise you, no matter what your aspiration is, you will get something out of this because networking is important in all aspects of our lives. Okay, so the plan for today is we'll first start with some stats, some statistics on career paths that physicists take. We will then move into networking, what it is, why to think about it, how to do it, and then we'll work on developing an elevator pitch together. Then we'll take a quick little break, and then we will move into the resume portion of the workshop where we'll talk about how to effectively communicate our skills, how to write a skills-based resume, and what comes next after you've written a successful resume. All right, so starting with some statistics, where do physicists work, right? It's often in academia, we often talk about how all we see around us are these faculty members. So we think, oh, that is the path we're taking, right? Everyone does physics and then they become this faculty member. And that's not true. So if we look at the data for physics bachelors, this is for the classes of 2017 and 2018, almost 9,000 physics bachelor's holders, right? About a year after their degree, about half of them went into graduate school for astronomy, physics, or other fields. And the rest went on to look for jobs. And out of those who did find jobs, a majority got jobs in the private sector, right? So that is where a lot of physicists are working. And then you say, okay, those are bachelors, right? And a lot of them went to grad school. What about those that go to grad school? So now if we look at physics master's degree holders, this is for the classes of 2016, 17, and 18, we see that over 50% of them also went into the private sector, and only about 20% found jobs at 2 or 4-year colleges or universities, right? And then the rest were in teaching in high school, going to government or national labs, or finding other types of work. And then we come to the PhDs. If we look at, this is NSF survey of doctoral recipients between 2001 and 2013. And what I really like about this, it shows you a timeline of what's happening. So what you see is just after getting their PhD, so 1 to 4 years after receiving their degree, a majority of the people, more than 50%, were finding work in academia, right? And then fewer were finding work in private sector or government jobs. And then when you start to zoom out, so if you look at 5 to 9 years later, you see this shift. There are fewer people working in academia. And then if you zoom out even more, 10 to 14 years later, or more than 15 years later, what you see is a majority of the people are working in the private sector, right? Or private sector and government. There are more are working in those sectors than in academia. And the reason I present this is not to discourage anyone from pursuing an academic career path. Academic career paths can be extremely rewarding. There's great community in academia. There can be great community in academia. The reason I present this is to show you where most of the jobs are, and to kind of break this myth that academics are physicists and people in industry are not physicists, because most physicists are working in the private sector, right? And not because they couldn't find academic jobs, but also because the private sector offers extremely rewarding career options with high paying salaries. We can talk more about that later if you all want. All right, so we just said a majority of physics degree holders find employment in the private sector, but what about you? How will you decide where to go? And how do you go about finding a job once you do decide where you want to work, right? This is where networking comes in. That is the first step. So I want to open the floor. What is What do you think is networking? Just like one or two words or a phrase that comes to mind when you think of networking? All right, I'm reading the chat. Latoya says communication. Awesome. That is definitely the theme of our workshop today. Anything else? Meeting people. Yes. Anything else? Communicating, meeting people. Those are pretty good. All right. So making connection. Yes, someone just said this in the chat as I revealed that that's also what I think. So networking is definitely about building connections, and it's also maintaining those connections, right? Very important to be able to do both. So why is it so important? Why are we here talking about this today? So research or experts estimate that more than 80% of jobs are actually found through networking. And between 70 to 85% of job postings go unadvertised. So what that means is people might post the job, but might not advertise it widely because they already know someone that they want to hire for the role, right? And the reason I'm sharing this is not to scare anyone that, oh, you're not going to be able to find a job if you just apply, to a posting without knowing anyone. That's not true. It still works. But if you think about it from the employer's perspective, if you were to hire someone, would you rather read a bunch of resumes and then say, okay, this person's probably right? Or would you say, oh, I know this person. I know they have really good skills. I've talked to them. They have good communication skills because I've, spoken with them. They would be a great fit for this role, right? So it's just easier because humans connect on a human level, right? So that's why this happens so often, and that's why networking is so important for us to be thinking about and working on. All right, so how we're going to think about networking today is we're going to categorize people into 3 types of roles. There can be overlap between the roles, but for our purposes, we're going to think about 3 types. So the first type of person who might be in your network is the connector. So this is someone who knows a lot of people, right? Or who knows some people and is willing to help connect you to them, willing to help you expand your network. It could be a professor, a past professor. It could be alumni from your program, a friend, or a community member, right? Then there is the advocate. This is someone who knows you very well personally and is a trusted advisor. So maybe a close friend, a family member, a mentor, someone you can bounce ideas off of. I'm thinking, this is what I'm planning for my career right now. Oh, now I'm thinking about changing my mind. Someone you can talk to, right? And then there is the expert. This is someone who can offer expert insight into a specific industry or topic. So a researcher, a speaker, someone who is working in, say, a company that you're interested in and can tell you about what it's like to work at that company. That is the expert. And again, there can be overlap. So that expert, if you build a really good relationship with them, they might become a mentor or advocate for you. Or they might say, yeah, I'm happy to connect you to 2 more people that I know if you're interested in this type of role. So I want everyone to take a minute and write down or just think about up to 3 people in your current network who fit each of these categories. So it can include family, friends, faculty, whoever you might know, up to 3 for each of these roles. So I'm going to give you a few seconds to think about that. All right. Does anyone want to share out loud or in the chat? We are being recorded, so I completely understand if you do not want to share out loud, but maybe in the chat. Were there more of one type, and were there any that are missing? Any of these categories that might be missing? I had more than one type. Awesome. Can you tell us, did you have one for each one? Was there any missing? I did. Awesome. That is great. And the other question I like to ask here is, are your experts all in the same type of role or job? Or are some of them faculty, some of them are at national labs, are some of them working in industry? Someone said therapist. Yes, great advocate to have. Everyone should have one of those. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. Okay, so now maybe we've thought about, yes, someone says all of my experts are faculty. Yes, exactly. So that's very common for people in academia, right? We tend to build a community around us, and that's great. But we tend not to look outside of that community to think about other career paths or think about other people's experiences outside of where we are, right? So that is what we're going to talk about today, is how to expand your network to include more people with different types of experiences and in different types of career paths. And why are we doing this? Because networks can offer information, right? What the other types of career paths are like, what experiences or skills you might want to build for those career paths. They can offer connections to opportunities, maybe a job, or to another person that might offer you a job, right? Internships. And then insight and guidance, right? They can give you some advice for a new career path. They can give you feedback on your resume, maybe inspiration for new interests or pathways. And if you build a really strong connection, sometimes you can even get mentorship. So now I want you all to think about what type of connections you might want to build. We just identified who's already in our network. What more do we want to do? Who else do we want to add? It doesn't have to be someone specific, like a specific human being. It can be, I really want to get to know someone who works in industry, or I want to know someone who works at Intel, right? And what are your goals? Are you looking just for information? Charles, you're a faculty member, so maybe you're looking for information so you can teach your students about the different types of career paths, right? So what is your goal? Is it to get information? Are you in the phase where you're looking for an internship or jobs? Are you looking for looking for opportunities? Are you looking for some guidance? And this last one, what could you offer to that person, right? So I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. Okay, so we're not going to share this out loud, but now you have a goal, right? You have some type of person you want to add into your network, and you have a goal for why you want to add this person, what it is that you're trying to learn about, right? And maybe what can you offer to this person? Can you maybe volunteer some of your time? Can you maybe tell them about your own career path? Or, maybe you can say, hey, I'll connect you to someone who has the experiences you're looking for, because maybe you're trying to hire someone, right? Because a lot of times people think networking is this icky thing where you're just trying to like use someone or get something out of it, but that's not actually true. Networking, it's at its heart, it's about the human connection. It's about community. It's about helping each other, right? And a lot of people who I talk to who are in industry welcome this type of interaction because they want to give back. They found their own jobs through networking and they want to give back. So there's a lot you can offer, and you should absolutely be going to these people and talking to them and building those connections. It's not icky. Okay, so keep this person in mind that you've identified, someone from some company, let's say, and your goal. And now what we're going to do is we're going to curate a narrative. We're going to think about what you might say to this person if you were in an elevator with them for 60 seconds, right? That's the elevator pitch. You have 30 seconds to 2 minutes to tell them who you are and what you're looking for, right? So a strong pitch is concise. It's between 30 seconds to 2 minutes. It does not use jargon or buzzwords. Jargon often does not necessarily make you sound smart. It just confuses people, right? And a strong pitch is focused on a specific audience and specific goal, which is what we just identified on the last slide. Lastly, this one's hard and comes with practice. You should try to make it a conversation, not a monologue. So you can say your pitch, but then you want it to sound conversational, right? You don't want to sound like you're reading something off a piece of paper. Okay, so now we're going to write down a pitch and practice with each other. So I'm going to ask you to pick one of the desired new contexts that you just thought about, right? So let's say for me, it's when I was in grad school, an employer from Intel, and my goal is to learn about what types of jobs or internships they have, right? Now I want you to jot down your pitch specifically tuned for this person and with your goal in mind. So I might say, I'm currently studying physics. Sorry, when I was in grad school, I would say this. I'm currently studying physics and have conducted research in optics. I'm planning to graduate in May and end the job search process, right? So an easy place to start, what I just did there, is present. So I'm currently studying physics. Past, I've conducted research in optics. And future, this is where your goal comes in. I'm planning to graduate in May and I'm in the job search process. All right, so I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes to write something down. You can do it in your head. You can use a notes document. All right, so hopefully you have something written down. Now we're going to practice this with a partner. Fun, right? So we're going to go into breakouts soon. And what we'll do is one person will be the speaker and the other will be the listener. And once the speaker has said their pitch, the listener will pose a series of questions. So what got you interested in physics? Why did you do optics research? Why not something else? Why are you interested in industry careers, right? That is the networking part of it, right? Is actually making things a conversation. And then you will switch, right? Remember your goal, but make it a conversation. Each person can take about, maybe not 2 minutes, maybe 90 seconds, and then trade roles. All right, let's open those breakouts. So once your screen says join breakout room, please join breakout room. Hi, Jacob. Thanks for joining us. We're just working on a networking pitch and practicing them with partners. So maybe feel free to join a room and maybe you can just listen in on what people are saying. Okay, awesome. Wait, why does it say the rooms will close in 30 seconds? Did I do that?
I don't know. We can open them again when they get kicked out, I guess.
Okay. Sorry, all. Feel free to go back in the rooms. I'm not sure what happened. Okay, maybe we can bring them back in a minute or so. All right, welcome back, y'all. I hope that was enough time to get a little bit of practice in. So let's talk about it. How did that go? What does anyone want to share what they did well or what their partner did well? Or what you might want to improve on? You can type it in the chat. Okay, let me ask this. Did it feel normal or did it feel kind of awkward? Yes. Nikiru, can you tell me how to say your name, please?
Yes, it's Nkiru.
And thank you.
Yes, so I think what I want to improve on, and I think my partner Farah did really well, was like keep a flow going of words. And I could not do that.
Yeah, it can be hard. It can be hard. And that's why we're practicing, right? And then I'll also read the chat. I have many reasons for my why. I want to be able to summarize that into an impactful statement. Awesome. Well, lucky for you, we're going to do it again. So now you can have the same contact if you want. You don't have to pick another one, but it is good to practice this, thinking about different types of contacts, right? And then different types of goals. Maybe this time you're not looking for opportunities. Maybe you're just looking to gather information about a certain type of career path, right? Now, instead of writing out the whole pitch, I want you to write down just a few key things, maybe just what this person is, what your goal is, and just a few key things you want to get across to this person. Maybe, like your career stage, a skill of yours, just a few. So I'm going to let you write down a few key things. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and practice again. Once again, one partner will be the speaker and the other will be the listener. And I do want to come back to the comment of I have a lot of reasons for why I'm looking for what I'm looking for, right? And that can come out. Maybe you want to prioritize the most important reasons first, and then let the other person ask, and then you can get into more of that information, right? So this time we'll have just 2 minutes to kind of get our elevator pitch to be a little bit quicker, right? So let's go ahead. I'm going to open. The rooms are open. Go ahead and join. Okay, switch partners if you to broadcast. Okay, are we all back? Yes, we should be back. Awesome. So let's reflect. How did that one go? Did that feel a little bit better, worse, too rushed?
That was better.
That was better. Awesome. Anything specific? I also see someone said better in the chat. Anything specific? Are there still opportunities to improve?
I would say that just knowing the points that you want to get across without thinking about memorizing a script made it flow maybe a little bit more naturally than before.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for making that point. And that's exactly the point of practicing. First, we start with kind of writing it down, right, to get you in the mindset of what you might need to say. But the more you do this, the more you'll realize that it is easier to kind of just think about your goal and the main points, and then it will come naturally. And that is actually when you will, it will, because when you're actually networking, you are having a conversation with someone, right? And that's what you want it to feel like. You want it to feel natural. So you'll maybe be at a conference and you'll say, I really like that speaker's talk. I want to go talk to them about their talk and, a couple other things about what I'm doing. And then you'll just walk up to them and you'll be ready to start that conversation, right? In the chat, someone says, it helped that I focused on a specific company and research interest. Yes, goal-oriented networking. We're not going to go say the same things to everyone we meet, right? We want to talk to specific people about our specific goals. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So hopefully now you all are ready to start talking to people and you know how to curate this narrative, right? Of how to introduce yourself and how to start building those connections. So what do you do once you have built those connections, right? You've made a contact, maybe you've traded some contact information. What's next? So it's really important to maintain your connections. And I will say, you don't have to do this with everyone, right? There have been people who I've met who I didn't feel like I clicked with. Maybe I felt that they were a little bit sexist or a little bit racist. I'm like, you know what? I don't need you in my network. I'm good. So it is important to maintain your connections, but not everyone you meet has to be in your network, right? So you pick people you click with, people you think will be good advocates for you, will be willing to connect you to things or to opportunities. Those people you want to maintain, right? And to keep your relationships with these people healthy, it's like a plant, right? You got to water it. You got to pay attention to it, keep it in the sun. During your initial conversation, maybe just ask if they're okay with you following up periodically, trade contact information, so email, or add them on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a great networking tool. And then every now and then, maybe you can check for industry or company specific updates. Maybe if they're in academia, you can say, oh, they just put out a paper. I'm going to email them saying, hey, just saw your paper, thought it was really cool. Just wanted to say that, right? Or if someone's company just launched a new product or a new initiative, you can say, oh, I saw this happened on LinkedIn. This is really cool. Congrats to your company. Were you involved, right? Make that an opportunity to follow up. And then also keep them informed on your searches and decisions, right? So if you had talked to them about building a specific skill, you can tell them, hey, I took a course or I just did this project in lab and now I'm really good at building circuits, or I'm like getting more comfortable building circuits, right? Whatever it is that you talked about, you can keep them informed on it. Maybe if you've met this person when you haven't started the job search yet, but now you're searching for jobs, let them know, hey, we met at this conference a couple months ago. I'm now nearing graduation and I'm beginning to look for these types of jobs. If you know of anyone hiring, or if you see any job postings, please send them my way, right? I did this a lot as a grad student, mostly because I had no idea what was out there and what I wanted to do. I was thinking either science policy or this nonprofit career, right? Which is where I am now. And what I started seeing is even people who I was only kind of meeting with and just talked to a couple times, they started sending me job postings. Hey, I remember you said you were interested in nonprofit stuff. I just saw this job at this random nonprofit you've never heard of. Here's a job posting, right? Or let me introduce you to someone who is hiring or someone who might be hiring. So this person will be able to guide you better, right? So this is what you'll start to see once you've just started meeting people and maintaining that connection a little bit. So what do you do once you are ready to apply to jobs, right? Hopefully by now we're all sort of comfortable networking, building those connections, and we're ready to start following up with people. Now we're going to switch gears to how to actually start applying to jobs and write those resumes. I just wanted to take a quick break here and also just check in. How are people feeling so far? Are you feeling okay with the networking side of things? Any questions? Okay, I see a thumbs up. Awesome. I feel pretty good. Awesome, thank you. I really, really appreciate this live feedback because otherwise I have no idea how people are feeling. Great so far. Awesome. So maybe we'll just take a 2 to 3 minute break so we can come back at 46 after the hour. And then we'll get into resumes. All right, are we back? Can I just get maybe a thumbs up? Awesome, thank you, Camille. All right, so we've built some connections right? Maybe now people are sending us job postings. Where do we go from there, right? So we're going to talk about that soon. But first, let's just go over what types of job postings you might see coming your way, or what types of job postings maybe you want to start looking for if you are thinking about applying. And as we talked about earlier, we are going to focus on private sector careers. I think it's much easier to find mentors in academia who can give you a lot of advice on academic careers. So I'm here to talk more about the private sector careers, just a caveat. So what kind of jobs might you see? For a physics bachelor's degree, you might see jobs that are in computer science or engineering. You could go into sales, you can be a consultant. Teaching, of course, great career to have, very fulfilling. Medical physics, right? So those are the types of broad fields where you might be seeing jobs. For someone with a master's, you might see some management roles with some research, maybe product development. And then for PhDs, you might see more on the research side. So even in industry, there are a lot of research positions for physics PhDs. And then data science, of course, is very big right now. More management positions, right? So those are just sort of some broad categories in case you're thinking about starting your search and you don't know what keywords to use. In case you are interested, I have a couple of links where you can look at what types of career paths people go into. So APS.org has a list of basically of profiles of each type of career path. So data science, how can a physicist go into data science? What other skills or experiences might you need to pursue a career in data science, right? What type of salary ranges you can expect? All of that is on there. And then AIP.org, they also have a great list of types of job titles that you can look at. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna drink some water. I'm beginning to lose my voice. Okay, so remember, we're here to curate our narrative, right? So one of the biggest mistakes that we make as academics, as physicists, as physics students, is that we often think about our subfield instead of our skills. So someone might say, students often come up to me and say, what kind of job is there for me because I am a nuclear physicist? So what type of job should I look for as a nuclear physicist? And so what they do is they go look for nuclear physics jobs. That's what they type in. And that might get you some results, but the problem is that you're in, this is how my boss, Crystal puts it, you're in the wrong subfield space. You're in the coordinate space for physics subfield, right? These are your vectors. But what you actually need to be thinking about are the skills you're gaining, because one type of nuclear physicist might be gaining very different skills than another one, right? Depending on the type of research they're doing. And maybe you're gaining the same skills as someone doing AMO or condensed matter more than you're gaining what other nuclear physicists are doing, right? So we want to think about skills. So maybe your skills, once you switch your vector, once you make a basis transformation, maybe your skills are analyzing data, right? Designing and building experiments, technical writing, coding, troubleshooting, modeling, understanding things from basic principles, from first principles, right? Those are the skills you've gained in your physics training. It's a lot. And now you can say, oh, if I look at these skills, now I'm going to look at jobs that are different types of engineering roles, research and development roles, maybe predictive modeling, teaching, sales and marketing, even entrepreneurship, right? So that is a very, very important thing to think about as you are communicating your skills, as you are networking, as you're writing your resume and applying to positions, is what are the skills you've gained? So let's go ahead and take a few minutes to think of what skills you have gained. I'm going to give you some examples of technical skills that we often learn during our physics training are applied research, problem solving, teaching, programming, documentation, error analysis, data analysis, simulation, modeling, designing things, developing things, right? Experiments, code, using specialized equipment. quality control. And another very important point is non-technical skills, which are often people call them soft skills, but these are actually much harder to teach and much harder to learn. But writing concisely and accurately, tailoring your message to an audience. These can be things you're learning in physics, in your classes, in your lab. These can be things you're learning during your volunteer work or your student org involvement, right? Have you done any public outreach events? You're learning to tailor your message to an audience, right? Managing, leading groups of people. Maybe you're running your student organization or helping run it. You're managing people, right? Managing projects. Are you making task lists, developing timelines? That's project management, right? Planning for obtaining necessary resources. If you're one of the organizers of Black in Physics Week, you had to find funding to do this. You had to find volunteers to do this, right? You needed facilitators, moderators, technical hosts. You have these skills, right? Developing, managing budgets, working on a team. That's an incredibly important skill for industry. So I want you to think about which of these might apply to you and keep them in mind as we keep going today. And because we're going to write a little bit of our resumes today. Also, many of these can be used as keywords when you're searching for jobs. So if you look at some of these skills and say, you know, these are the ones that I'm really good at and I enjoy doing, search for jobs that have those skills. Use these as keywords. All right, so now you have a list of your skills and you're ready to apply to industry jobs. What can you expect? The first thing it's going to ask for, most industry jobs will ask for a resume. And the point of a resume is to highlight your skills and it should match the job description. So we're going to focus most of our time today on the resume, but other things that will also be part of this job application packet is a cover letter. So the point of the cover letter is to emphasize how you fit the description. So whatever's missing in the resume, you can emphasize that, you can add that, and you can emphasize exactly why it's you that's an ideal candidate for the specific job position. And an industry job might also ask for references. And the key there, I know it sounds obvious, but the key is to find good references. So someone who will actually say good things about you, is willing to be your advocate. Remember our 3 types of network members. And I found it really useful when I was applying to jobs to send my references, the job description and my resume, and to say, hey, this is what I'm applying for. Here's the resume I sent to them. If you could talk about these specific skills of mine, that would be great. And then I might talk to another reference and say, hey, I worked with you on the student organization, right? Could you specifically talk about some of my non-technical skills, right? And that way your references are also covering some of the basics. So we're not going to talk more about cover letters and references, but we're going to spend most of our time on the resume today. But I just wanted to kind of go over what you might expect in an industry job packet. And remember that the purpose of the packet and the purpose of that resume is to get you an interview, not the job. So you don't have to tell them, exactly why they should hire you right away. That's not what you're doing with your job packet. What you're doing is you're convincing them that you match the job description well enough that they should bring you an interview and ask you more questions. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you write a resume? So first of all, what we are taught often in academia is how to write a CV, a curriculum vitae. And I will say that is US language. Outside of US, often CV is the word that's used for a resume. So it can be confusing. But in the US, a CV is what is used for an academic position. A resume is used for most other positions. A CV can be several pages long. It lists all your publications, all your positions, everything you've ever done. It's on there. A resume is no longer than 2 pages. And I would say if you're graduating and coming right out of grad school or coming right out of a bachelor's, you might even want to keep it 1 page long. CV lists all your work experiences. Resumes only list experiences and skills that are relevant to a specific position. So what that means is every job you apply to, you will tailor your resume for that job. So that is the difference. All right, so now we're going to take a look at an example of a CV. This is Jane's CV, okay? It has a research objective to understand basic principles behind everyday phenomena and most importantly, get a job. Most times you don't need a research objective. You don't need a summary statement. What you need is to highlight your skills. Okay, then it's her education and then work experience. Postdoc, research assistant, publications. And the job Jane is applying to is instrument design engineer. If we look at, sorry, was there a question? Okay, so the job Jane is applying to is, job description says, the successful applicant will lead a new instrument team and will have experience in microcontrollers, data acquisition, analog and digital processing, and algorithm design. They'll also need ability to read schematics. Candidates should have strong written and oral communication skills, should be comfortable in a leadership position and working with a team. So now, if you look at this CV, if you're the hiring manager, you look at this CV and you look at this job description, would you think this is a good fit? Can you tell if this is a good fit? Anyone? Yes, no, maybe? No, it's challenging to tell. Thank you, Latoya. Yeah, you can't tell, right? Jane did a bunch of postdocs, that's great, but do we know what she was doing during those postdocs? As a hiring manager, I would have no idea if this person would fit this role. What Jane didn't mention is that she actually, during one of her postdocs, devised signal processing techniques to remove background effects in her experiment. She also designed and coded software that runs the data acquisition system that's still being used to this day. And not to mention, she also developed and led a really successful outreach program to local high schools in her spare time. Would have been helpful if she mentioned that, right? So now let's try that again. Let's take that CV and turn it into a resume, right? Now we're going to have the very first line, data acquisition experience, designed and built sensors and electronic data, right? Algorithm design experience, wrote analysis software using C++, leadership experience. Remember, the job called for leadership position, right? Developed and led a science outreach effort to local high schools. So how about now? How about if we now look at this job description and look at this resume, we're seeing that it's the same exact words. If I'm a hiring manager who doesn't necessarily know what analog and digital processing is, I can still look at this job description and see that this candidate has used signal processing techniques, right? Using words directly from the job description on your resume will get you in, right? So now I might say, as a hiring manager, this sounds like a great fit. Let's get Jane in for an interview. Okay, so hopefully I've now convinced you that a resume is more important, is extremely important to write for industry positions. How do you do it? How do you write this resume? It's a 3-step process. The first is to understand the skills that the job requires. So this means carefully reading the job description, right? I know they can be long, I know it takes time, but carefully reading it and looking at things like the requirements, responsibilities, experience, qualifications. Then assessing honestly whether you have those skills or whether you are genuinely interested in building them, right? I do want to give a caveat here. You don't have to have all the skills, right? It's a commonly known, it's statistically known that a white man might apply to a job if they meet, maybe 60% of the job description. They'll say, oh yeah, I can do that. But maybe a woman of color might say, oh, I don't meet all of these. I'm probably not qualified. They're not going to hire me. The truth is, when the employer is writing the job description, often they have a unicorn in their mind. The person they're looking for doesn't even exist. They're just throwing everything out there to see what they'll get, right? So if you are interested, even if you don't have all of those experiences, but you're interested in them, you should apply to the job. And now that you've looked at the skills that are required and thought about which ones you have and which ones you might be interested in learning, you can connect those dots in your resume. And again, we're going to focus on skills, not labels. So let's look at one of these 4 job descriptions. Okay, I'm going to paste this link in the chat. There are 4 job descriptions that I have provided as an example. And there I've gone ahead and done just bachelor's and master's level, just because I think hopefully the people in this room, one of these will be applicable for you for sure, right? So scientific writer, accelerator lab manager, medical physicist, data scientist. By the way, all of these are either recent postings from the APS job board, and I think one of them is from something that was created for a separate workshop that I helped with. So let's go ahead and start with step 1, which is identifying key skills. So I'm going to go ahead and do the scientific writer position. I have some of it pasted here. If you like, you can pull it up from the folder that I just shared in the chat. But as a scientific writer, some of the requirements that I'm going to go through and I'm going to list key skills. I'm just going to highlight things. So the first thing I see is hands-on skills, specifically for imaging systems, right? Then I see writing skills in English, organization and planning, interpersonal skills, multidisciplinary teams, right? That's where you want to be able to communicate to different types of audiences. Multitasking, detail-oriented, time management, keep going. Interdisciplinary teams, communicating science to different audiences, developing content, developing applications, visualization, website reorganization, right? Just go through the job posting and highlight everything that looks like a skill or a relevant experience, right? So now I'm going to ask, we did this one together. I'm going to ask you to pick one of the other job descriptions in the folder, or if you want, you can go to the APS job board or on LinkedIn and find a job posting and pick that one and identify some key skills. So I'm going to give you not 5 minutes. I'll give you 2 minutes just because we're short on time. I apologize. So click over to the job description that you want to work on and highlight or just jot down skills that you see as relevant. So a couple minutes to do that. Okay, so hopefully, maybe you're not done with the entire job description because they tend to be very long, but hopefully you have a few skills highlighted, right? Next, let me just share a few of the things I highlighted. I'll leave this up for just a little bit for the different positions. Here's what I saw for the accelerator lab manager position: maintaining lab equipment, identifying needs for the experiment, familiarity with specific types of systems, user support, management skills. Similarly, for medical physicists and data scientists, just a few skills that caught my eye. So I'll let you compare those to the one that you picked. All right, so hopefully you're seeing some similarities and some of the same skills caught your attention. Now we're going to spend some time on picking one of these skills that you've identified and writing one or two bulleted items that describe your achievements and skills. And what we're going to do is we're going to use the format skill description first. So first you're going to focus on what you did or what skill you have, comma, and then in parentheses, your title, institution, and the relevant dates, right? Make sure to word the bullet points in an active voice. So designed, developed, right? And it can also help. I struggle with this. So English is my second language. Honestly, even if it was my first, I think I'd still struggle with it. I just struggle with language and words. So if you feel like you keep using the same word, I'm linking a resource from the University of Oregon that just lists all of the action verbs in the world that you can use for your resume. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a few minutes to just write maybe one bullet point for one of the skills or requirements that you identified in the job description. I'll give you maybe 4 minutes to do that. Sorry, I forgot to give an example to do that. So for example, the medical physicist position that we just talked about, if I'm writing a bullet point related to written communication and documentation, I might say created user documentation for taking NMR data with magnetometer, right? And then in parentheses, I'll write graduate assistant, University of Michigan, da, 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 da. But the most important thing, the skill or the thing I did is the main point of the bullet point, right? Or if I was writing something related to quality assurance and testing, I might say performed functionality testing of motor-driven stage to calibrate for position control, right? Using similar words as the job description and focusing on the skill rather than the position I was in, right? All right, sorry, back to writing. All right. So does anyone need more time? Let me know in the chat. Or if there are any questions. All right, so hopefully we have 1 or 2 bullet points related to one of the job descriptions that you are interested in. Does anyone want to share what you wrote down? Anyone?
I can share.
Awesome. Please go ahead and tell us which job description you used and which skill you wrote your bullet point for.
Sure. So it's for the data scientist position, and the skill was for proficiency in 1 or more programming languages.
Okay.
Yeah. So I wrote that I developed a Python interface between 2 Python packages, typically used in material science, to perform mathematical calculations of novel material.
Awesome. So you started with the active action verb performed. Perfect. You listed Python, right? And so anyone doing data science will know what that is. And you gave some specifics on exactly what you did. That's awesome. That just hearing it, maybe reading it, it would feel different. It did sound just a little bit long,
Okay.
but that is a great start.
Okay,
That is
great.
awesome. And you just said novel materials instead of trying to list out whatever materials it was that the hiring manager will not know or care about.
Yeah.
So perfect. Perfect use of like avoiding jargon. That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sure.
And was that, if you don't mind, or someone else can answer, was that easy or hard? And why?
For me, it was a little tricky because the avoiding the jargon part is tricky.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It comes with practice. So a next step you might want to take is to have someone else look at the resume, right? Or try to help you, like, how do you think I should say this to someone else who might not have this background? Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So once you've done this for a couple of the skills, we only did it for 1 skill, right? So what you're going to do next is you're going to group your skills into categories and you're going to fill out the resume. So you're going to look at that job description again and look at everything you highlighted. And you're going to say, okay, which skills are the most relevant to this job description that you have, that you want to showcase, right? And those are going to become your headings. So instead of postdoc number 1, graduate research assistant, instead of those being your headings, for a skills-based resume that is often used in industry settings, you're actually going to make those skills or experience areas your headings. So the first one might be data analysis skills. The second one might be leadership skills, right? And once you've made these categories, then you will start writing your bullet points under those headings. So for documentation writing experience, created user documentation for taking our data, right? That is how you will organize your resume as a skills-based resume. And then what are your next steps? Get some feedback before submitting it. Ask a friend or a mentor to review the job description and the resume, right? And ask them, is there anything, we just talked about jargon, is there anything you didn't understand? Is there anything I could have said more succinctly? I think that's how you say that. Can anything be made shorter, right? What else would you have liked to see? Is there anything in this job description that I am not addressing on my resume or in my cover letter, right? So getting that feedback is extremely important. And even a friend who has no experience in this field, that might be the perfect person for you to ask to do this, because a lot of hiring managers often don't have the technical expertise. They're just looking at the job description and looking for good, well-rounded candidates. Okay, so to review, we're going to build for our job applications, we're going to build a skill-based resume. We're going to find job postings and identify key skills. That's step one. We will then assess whether it's a good fit for us, whether we want this job, right? Whether we would like to be doing the work that is described, whether we possess at least some of the skills that are required. And then we're going to put together a resume by writing bullet points for each skill using action verbs and categorizing them into sections that match the keywords in the job description. Any questions on this process? Okay, awesome. So what's next? Say you've written, we built our network, we started applying to job positions. Now what? If your resume does its job, you will then have questions like, what do I do for an interview? How do I prepare? What can I expect, right? Should I negotiate my offer? What are some strategies I can use? And then follow up. So if you've had an interview, what are the standard practices? Do I follow up if I haven't heard back in a few days? Can I still follow up even if I don't receive an offer? The answer is yes. For all of these, I recommend checking out the APS online guidebook. It covers everything starting from self-assessment, skills inventory, resume writing, tips on cover letters, all the way to interviewing and negotiation tips. And it also has featured 5-minute little webinar clips from some of our top careers webinars. So I recommend checking that out if you are in that phase where you're starting to interview and thinking about negotiation. This is the link for it. You can also just find it if you go to aps.org/careers. And then some additional resources I wanted to highlight for you is our website, aps.org/careers. I'll go ahead and type it in the chat if you like. We have a job board. So if you don't know where to start looking for jobs, APS has a job board. And I believe Black in Physics Week will also have some exhibitors and some networking activities. So you might find out about some job postings there. I think there's a Black in Physics job board as well. So that's great places to start looking. We have some physicist profiles on our careers website. That's one of my favorite parts. We've highlighted over 50 physicists working in industry, national labs, academia, and just kind of told their stories of why they got interested in physics, why they chose the career path they chose, what they enjoy about their jobs, how they still use physics in their jobs. And we also have a huge library of webinars. So go check it out if you're interested in. There's some on networking, there's some on career exploration, there's some industry-based ones. And then lastly, there is the APS Careers Guide, which is a printed guidebook, and the digital version is available online for free. You can also request a free copy of this guide, and we hand them out at pretty much all APS conferences. If you're going to come to one of the March or April meetings or QWIP, we'll be handing out the 2023 versions of this. And basically, this also has some profiles of physicists working in different types of career paths, science communication. We try to highlight, some really fun career paths, like someone doing comedy, and then discussion of careers with social impact. And my favorite part of this is the employer directory. So at the end of each guide is a list of companies. And for each company, we talk about what type of work they do and what type of candidates they're looking to hire, what kind of work you can expect to do if they were to hire you. And all of these are companies who hire physicists. So highly recommend checking that out. And yeah, I hope you found this useful. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. I like to leave a lot of time for Q&A. So please, questions, comments, throw them my way. If you think of something later, feel free to email me. And Kiro, please go ahead.
So thank you for the informative presentation. I actually used some of the APS career resources to help provide some content for a student event I was running.
Awesome.
It was a list of companies that had hired physicists, especially in New York. And this there's a question from that event that to this day never figured out.
Okay.
But don't know if you can provide any insight into what a physicist would do at the New York Department of Parks and Recreation.
That's a great question. So I, obviously off the top of my head, I haven't seen that job posting and I don't know that physicist personally, but maybe I can start with one career option that a lot of people go into is government or policy, right? And there are lots of different types of things you can do within the executive branch, so different agencies. Some very obvious ones are NSF or DOE, where you go and you're working within the physics or science divisions and you're doing, you're reviewing grants, or you're talking about funding, or you're explaining to other funders or to Congress people why this science is important, or why one type of experiment might be more useful or impactful than another type, right? So that's very sciencey role. And then you have lots of transferable skills, right? So project management, because you have done, because you have carried out your research project from start to end, you are now trained at least a little bit in project management, creating budgets, right? Managing budgets, working on a team, analyzing some kind of data. Maybe the parks are working on a project where they have a lot of data coming in and they need someone to analyze it and make recommendations based off of it, right? So I don't know specifically what this person might be doing, but I'm really glad you mentioned this example, because the whole point that I try to get across to students and early career folks is that you have so many transferable skills. You can work in a million different types of positions, right? You shouldn't just be searching physicist or nuclear when you're searching for jobs. It really depends on what types of roles you want, and you can get there. You might need to develop some additional skills. You might need to really work on your networking and getting to know more people in that field, but you can get there. So for example, I'm at a nonprofit, right? And I am at APS, which does serve physicists, but my skills are applicable to other nonprofits that might be doing education work or might be doing something completely different. But I now have project management experience, facilitating workshops, public speaking, right? These are all of my skills that can be transferred to a lot of different places. What did I do in grad school? I built a magnetometer for a particle physics experiment. I did AMO, I did lasers, I did optics, right? Am I using a lot of that specifically now? No, but what I did learn in grad school that I now transfer to this job is communicating with other physicists, communicating with academic mentors to talk to them about how to help their students find jobs, how to train their students, how to give their students skills that will help them find jobs, right? And then of course, communicating with the students, which is my favorite part. Does that help? That was very
that's truly amazing. And I can see, yes, now thinking about it, I didn't really know what to think at this time, but yeah, the data analysis, the project management, I could see how that could work at a parks agency. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I would love to get to know that person though and ask them, how they got there, who they knew, or how that job caught their attention. That would be interesting. Any other questions? Okay, if there are no other questions, we could end early, but there was two slides that I didn't go over because I wasn't sure if we'd have enough time. And I just want to leave you with it. Sorry, not this one. These are different places you can network. I'm sure you know that you can go to alumni events, career fairs, conferences. But the thing I wanted to just let you know about, if you are exploring career options, you're not sure what's out there, a really, really useful tool that helped me a lot, it's called informational interviews. It's basically a 20 to 30-minute conversation, usually with an expert. So someone who you want to learn, if you want to learn about their career path or the industry that they're in, the company that they're in, right? And the way to get one, if you meet someone at a conference, you meet a speaker, or some alumni, you say, okay, is it okay if I just, would you be okay just talking to me for like 20, 30 minutes about your career path? I just want to learn about your career path, right? Most people love talking about themselves. They will say yes. You can ask them in person. If you were meeting people, online, if you're talking to different speakers at this week, because there are lots of great activities planned, I believe. You can also reach out through a cold email. So if you've never met this person before, you can try reaching out to them. Usually it's better to get someone else who knows them to connect you. That usually people give a better response. I respond to if someone reaches out to me on LinkedIn, especially if it's a student, like, hey, I just want to learn about what you do. I always respond, even if it's someone I don't know. But usually it's better to have some connection. And then the actual informational interview. What do you actually do once this person says, yes, I'm willing to meet with you on Zoom or over the phone, whatever, 20, 30 minutes. Before you go into it, do a little bit of research so you know who that person is. Maybe look at their LinkedIn or their website to see, kind of learn a little bit so you can prepare informed questions and set some goals. Okay, I'm trying to learn about a new career, or I want to make 2 more contacts. I'm going to ask this person to introduce me to more people. I'm really interested in this person's job. I want to find new skills of interest, right? And then during the interview, you can ask questions like, can you tell me about your career path? What was it like? How did you get here where you are? What do you like about your job? And my favorite question is, what do you dislike about your job? Because if you can find a job where you can minimize the types of things you dislike, you are golden, right? So what do you dislike about your job? What does a typical workday look like, right? Those are great questions to ask so you can assess if that career option would work for you. If you're interested, you can ask to get involved and volunteer. That's what I did with APS, right? I really enjoyed hearing what Crystal, my current boss, what she told me about her job. And I said, how do I get there? How do I build those skills? And she said, start volunteering with APS. Don't ask for a job. It's an interview, but it's not an interview for a job. This person's meeting you to talk to you about their career path. They might not be hiring, and it could make them uncomfortable if you say, hey, can you hire me, right? What you can say is, I'm looking for jobs. Would you be willing to pass along my resume? Or give me feedback on my resume? Something like that would be fine, but not, are you hiring? Can you hire me? All right, we're at time. I just wanted to leave that with you all because I think informational interviews are extremely useful tools to gain information about career paths. Any other questions before we sign off? All right. Thank you all so much for joining today, for participating, and for sharing your thoughts with us today. I hope you have a great rest of the Black in Physics week and do some great networking and make connections.
Thank you, Minad. That was really, really fantastic.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me. All right. Have a great week all. Bye.